So let's go ahead and we can start controlling some fixtures here and playing around with, selecting fixtures, and maybe let's design a lighting cue. On page 13, where it's talking about designing a lighting cue, it's talking about the freeze button there. There's a little paragraph about the freeze button. The freeze button is right here in the keypad. And what that does is it controls how the programmer, or where we physically place lights into certain values before they're stored. It controls how the programmer reacts if it is overwritten, basically. So let's say I grabbed fixture 201 through 206. I put them at full. So they're now in the programmer. The dimmer value for 100 is in the programmer for those fixtures. And let's say I then played back a sequence or cue that was trying to also control the dimmer value for 201 through 206 and change it to something else. If the freeze button is off, which is the default, so it defaults to off, so it's just white text here, and that situation was to happen, if the values are overwritten by another change later on, by sequence, effect, anything like that, it will actually automatically release that value from the programmer. Normally, we don't want this to happen. If I place something in the programmer, I want it to stay there until I tell it not to. So we will turn the freeze button on. Just click it and it'll light up yellow. We're going to deal with freeze on all the time. Once you get past PP4, if you really feel like you don't want that to happen, you can take freeze off. But for us in our tutorials and labs, we're going to be having freeze on because we want the programmer to be frozen, meaning that if I place a value in the programmer, it'll stay there no matter what a sequence or executor tells it to do otherwise, until I clear it. Physically clear it out myself. Okay, so turn freeze on and leave it on. One more thing we want to change here, since we're not dealing with channel IDs, the console actually, if you look here above the keypad, the number pad, you see channel and fixture, those two buttons right there. And channel is lit up yellow right now. That's the default. So the console will default to channel IDs when we start a new file. And if we look in the command line down here, the teal line here where all the commands go, it says channel here because it's defaulted to channel. Since we're dealing only with fixture IDs, we're going to go ahead and change that default to fixture so that I don't have to come in here and type fixture number each time. I can just type the numbers in. So to do that, we're going to click on fixture and hit please. So now I have fixture here in the command line, that's the default, and fixture is lit up yellow here. And so if I just type in a number, it knows it's a fixture ID instead of a channel ID. So we want to change that and leave that the way it is also, all the time. All right, so to select fixtures on the console, we select it by their fixture ID or channel ID. For us, fixture ID. There's multiple ways to do it. I can come into the command line or the keypad over here and type in 203. Now it's not going to select the light until I hit please. Once I hit please, it actually selects the light. And if you're looking at a fixture sheet, anything that's got yellow bold text is currently selected, and that's who I'm talking to. If I made a mistake and selected the wrong fixture, I can hit clear one time and that will release the selection. Okay, we'll talk about the clear button in a later lab. There's actually multiple levels of clear on the console. So if I'm fully clearing the programmer, I would hit clear 3 times. The first clear is clearing the selection. The second one clears active values. And the third one is clearing the programmer, which we'll talk about more. But just know that if you made a mistake, like if I type 201 and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't want that one, I just hit clear once and then I make a new selection. I can also select lights through the fixture sheet by clicking on them. So I can just click and it's selected. I can keep clicking to select more. Once I make a change, then I have to select a new set of lights. The selection will be released if I make a change. All right, for us right now, it wants us to select fixture 203. So let's click on 203. Now, let's say I want to start adjusting the parameters for this light. So I'm going to tell it to do something. I need to go to the correct tab down here to control the attribute that I want. So these are different sets of attributes that I can control, or parameters. For us, we're going to be dealing with dimmer first. So let's go to dimmer tab, which maps my encoders to the dimmer functions. There's only one. There's just dimmer for these lights. And to change this, I can either use the encoder, which on the PC software is a little bit difficult. I think Sean was saying in lecture this morning, if you click on the encoder and drag up or down, it will be like a slower change. And if you click and hold and drag left or right, it's a bigger change. So it happens faster. You also have this little tab next to each attribute that says normal, fine, and ultra. That will determine how much control you have over that and how fast it changes based on turning the encoder or dragging it in our case. Fine would be much smaller changes, and then ultra would be like you're gonna have to turn that wheel 10 times to get it to move 1%, you know. So you can select which mode you want just by clicking it and toggling through. Usually we will change that for pan and tilt on ours to fine. I think my zoom is, okay, there we go. My zoom is a little bit laggy. So for us, we're going to turn the dimmer here to full. Come on. All right, I guess you can see that. All right. So in my encoder here, I see it says 255 open. The reason it's reading out that way is because we changed in our options up here, we changed the display readout to decimal. So now it's reading as a DMX value, 0 through 255. If I left it on natural, then it would be a percentage. So it'd be 0 to 100. We'll change it back in another lab, but just to display for you. And also in the fixture sheet here, I see that that is now red, telling me that it's in the programmer. And it's telling me what the value is. It's the dimmer is open. All right, so now we're going to take this light and we're going to change its position. I'm going to actually bring my renderings up a little bit so you can see this better. All right, now I want to deal with pan and tilt. So I'm going to go to the position tab here. Now we always want to tilt first before we pan. The reason for that is because if I go here and I just start moving my pan, oh, I'm not seeing anything change lighting wise down here. That's because they're pointing straight down. If I pan, it's just going in a circle, so the light's not moving. So I could get myself flipped all the way around and pan to a 180 and not know it because I can't see the change. So I always want to tilt first so I can see the pan movement and make sure I'm not turning myself around and having these big, huge flips when I go to program my presets. So I'm going to take this, start it over because I just changed that. Again, at is a shortcut for full. Period would be a shortcut for 0 if you want to remember that, because that's a pretty handy shortcut. Got something in the command line. So we're mapped our encoders to pan and tilt. Again, this is a place where I like to change both of these to fine. And we're going to position these lights onto downstage center-ish. So I'm going to start taking this. I'm going to tilt first. So I'm going to click and I'm going to drag up. I'm in fine mode, so it's going pretty slow. So I might be able to go to the right instead. Yeah, I'm just going to tilt up a little bit. Now I can start panning over. And it doesn't have to be exact, just somewhere near downstage center. Okay, now I want to change the color. So I'm going to come to the color tab. And when I enter here, I see a different option. So when I was at dimmer, right below that, I see the black box here says dimmer, and it's just a rectangle. For position, I also see position here, it's just a rectangle. When I go to color, now I see that it's a rectangle, but it has this little shark fin here at the bottom. If you see that, that means there's multiple different sort of pages of executors for these functions for color. There's more than 4 things that I want to change color-wise for my fixtures. So I have more than one set of encoders for color. So if I click this again, it goes to a new set of encoders with a new set of functions. In this case, CTC, which is our color temperature correction. Click it again, I'm back to mixed color. So just know that there can be more than one set of encoders for a certain type of attribute. And we're defaulting to RGB color mixing because most of our fixtures are LED, so we're using additive mixing for RGB. You could also mix in CMY mode if you want to, but that's a change in the console you'd have to make in the settings. For us, we're going to be dealing with RGB when we're mixing colors. So let's say we want to, let's just say we're going to mix a magenta color. Okay, so magenta is going to be full red, full blue, no green. So we want to go ahead and start changing these. You can use the encoders if you want to. For me, it's a lot easier if I'm dealing with these sorts of things. If I just click on one of these options, it opens up a little calculator box and it will give me some common positions for this value to be, and also a keypad where I can just type in a value. Again, we're in decimal right now. So we're dealing with 0 to 255, not 0 to 100. And it's going to be reversed with this RGB color mixing right now. So if I click on, you'll see max is the default, which means that I'm in white. So 0, 0, and 0 for red, green, blue in decimal mode is actually white, or full red, green, and blue. So it's kind of reversed. Oh. So if we go minimum on red, it actually goes up to the maximum DMX value of 255, which means no red. So it's kind of backwards if we're using decimal. But for us right now, we'll go max for red, max for blue, minimum for green, which gives us magenta. Full red, full blue, 0 green, even though it's not displayed that way DMX wise. All right, so we'll do one more thing and we'll grab, let's go to the beam tab now. The beam tab is going to control some things, you know, like your shutter, your might control your iris if you had one, and some of the other beam functions. Whereas focus was going to be, it was usually going to control focus, zoom, if you have a prism, stuff like that. For us, we want to change the shutter. We're just going to put it onto a like a random strobe. So again, if I have this light selected and I click here, it gives me some pre-built options of places, because I might not know where within 0 to 255 these certain functions are with this attribute. So if I click on it, it gives me some options, some suggestions. We want a random strobe. So let's just pick max RND, which would be maximum random. If I do that, now my light starts strobing.